That's where we live. Danaf. Logistically speaking, we are at the center of it all.
You are listening to What the Truck. Are you ready to truck it? I'm Dooner. Welcome to the show. Dead center in the middle of the week. Lost you there for a second, didn't I? Or did I just blink? I'm not sure. We got a great show today. We're going to kick things off with Rachel Premack. She's going to talk about a Girl Scout cookie shortage, the horror, brokerage layoffs, the horror, rail safety oversights, the horror, and what pet food and Lunchables have in common. Probably all too much. UberFreight senior economist Mazen Danaf is here. He's going to break down the freight market. He looks at volumes, capacity, fleet expansion, and the outlook for the second half of the year. And SuperTrucker's here, man, and he's been ranting all week. He's been mad about driver training, truck sideshows, delivering to the wrong address, passing the time in a big rig, surveillance in the truck. He's got all sorts of stuff at top of mind. So this is going to be a fiery one. So get ready. Let's tip the band. We got a new one this time, too. The Eye of the Hurricane. Supply chain challenges are not always easy, but the commitment from the team at Donovan Logistics to take on, Donovan Logistics to take on the responsibility is unwavering. Donovan, logistically speaking, they're at the center of it all. Visit them at donovan.com. All right, editorial director at FreightWaves and brand new pair of Crocs owner, Rachel Premack. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
I wanted to congratulate you. I saw this tweet that you put out that you finally got your first pair of Crocs. Can you tell us a little bit about your buying decision and what led you down this road?
Yes, definitely. So one of my good friends who actually lives in Greenville, South Carolina, she loves her Crocs. I mean, it's easier if you live in a place with no snow and all that kind of stuff, but she wears them to the beach. She wears them around her house. And I was just thinking, it's time for me to have a waterproof shoe that's not flip-flops. So I bought the Crocs. They're really comfortable. I mean, I guess everyone already knew that, but I was really surprised. There's arch support. There's like little bumpy things on the bottom. I actually have them right here. I got the pink ones.
Yeah. Well, very classic.
Yeah.
There were people online accusing you of buying like knockoffs. John Conrad from G-Captain, he's like, "Oh, are they real Crocs or did you get like some cheap brand?" Can you believe
they're
that?
not that expensive? So
No.
I mean, they're like $30, $20. I don't know. If they were like, I almost expected them to be like $70 for some reason. I don't know why I thought they were going to be like incredibly expensive, but they're not. So
kids and nurses, they kept those alive like all through the up and down periods. Although I think Croc is having a resurgence. I just saw a picture of like their executives. They're out at some event and they have like dress Crocs. I don't know if you've seen those, but they're like the next tier. But I like that you went classic. You went with just like the regular look that people are expecting to see out of a Croc.
Yeah. I think it would be really helpful come, beach and pool season. I love a waterproof shoe, and it's a closed toe situation, so I could wear them around New York. I could make a new fashion statement. Probably not, though, but definitely good for around the house and at the beach.
Too many nibble holes for the rats over there, so you may want to consider that. I joined like a new footwear club, too. I never owned a pair of Nike Air Jordans, and I bought myself over the weekend. I got to say, Nike shipping, nice. I got these at 11 p.m. on like a Saturday, and they showed up on Tuesday. They showed up at like noon on a Tuesday.
Oh,
I know.
that's really fast.
That was really fast. Everyone's like getting better and stuff like that gets easily like ripped off and knocked off. I always just rather go to the manufacturer.
Exactly.
All right. I think we actually. I don't want like counterfeit stuff on my feet like John Conrad thought you had. There are some serious topics going on though, right? You might need the counterfeit ones if you just got laid off from a brokerage. This freight market hasn't been great and it's been a weird recessionary environment that's hit in waves. What is going on with the layoffs? Are we going to see more of them? Is this just the start?
Yeah. So last year, these freight brokers slashed more than 700 payrolls in these bulk mass layoffs. This year, they've cut nearly 1,000 jobs, and it's only March 1st. So I think we will definitely see even more of these layoffs. And the reason behind them is not shocking to anyone who watches this show or follows the economy more broadly, a lot of these freight brokers just hired tons and tons of people from 2020 to 2022. And now that the freight market has slowed down, we don't have that same volume of freight going through the brokerage system or the forwarding system. So naturally, we'll need fewer people to handle those shipments.
Well, I got to tell you, the economists have been killing it with the phrases that they come out with, like quiet quitting. We had quiet quitting. We had the great resignation. And now in your article, there's a new term in there called crisis hiring, which I think is there to sort of temper our fear about some of these layoffs, because a lot of them, if I'm not mistaken, they're trying to equate them to the overabundance of hiring that happened during the pandemic because workers were hard to come by and unemployment was low.
Yeah, I mean, and crisis is a pretty fitting term for supply chain, especially in 2021. I mean, we were all talking about the supply chain crisis. There was just an unprecedented amount of freight that needed to get moved. And a lot of that was on the spot market. A lot of that was outside of what shippers normally carry or what they can expect their dedicated carriers to move for them. So it makes sense that they had to go to brokers.
Interesting. A lot of companies are getting ready to do reviews. They got to decide on who's going to stay in for the next year, who they're going to give raises to, all of that kind of stuff. Well, Steam Logistics, they have their own approach to this. Now, they've been adamant they haven't made any layoffs other than performance, but now they're offering people $2,000 to quit. Now, this isn't new. They've been offering this for a long time. They emailed their staff, though, and put this offer back out there. First of all, what do you make of the offer?
I think I think if you want to lose some headcount, but you don't want to say, hey, we're laying people off, this is definitely one way to do it. I think I'd read that some companies that, made all these big hires during the pandemic, they have to retain those employees through a certain point, through however many years. So I think we're going to start to see these sort of offers more common, like what Steam did or what Steam has been doing the past few months or few weeks. It's a good way to lose some headcount without saying, oh, hey, we're doing layoffs. And if you receive some sort of federal stimulus money or some sort of tax benefits as a result of hiring people through the pandemic, then you can still qualify for those funds. So I guess it's a kind of convenient loophole if you're in that position.
My question is, why would you take it if you're an employee? If you think you're going to get fired, I mean, just get fired. You'll get unemployment and you may even get some severance. I guess if you want to quit, but then that begs the question, does this only incentivize the person who already has a ship to jump to leave? Yeah,
I could definitely see that. Let's say I'm a decent employee. Well, I hope I am a decent employee, but yeah. Let's say I am looking for a new job. I see that where I'm working is not really doesn't seem like it's thriving or growing in the next year. I would look for a new job, and if I can get $2,000 before I'm out the door, if I'm leaving anyways, then so be it. Because a lot of these layoffs that have been happening the last few months, people get 3, 6, even 12 months of severance. They're not working, but they get their normal salary for 3 to 6 to 12 months. So I would just wait around for a layoff if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, same here. Even at like the worst brokerages, usually you still get a month, which is probably going to be more than the $2,000. Then you can get unemployment. But maybe if you're not working out, but you need. Sometimes people just stick around too long. Maybe you just need to give them some. It's like an anti-signing a bonus.
Yeah. It's like a get out of here bonus.
Interesting. So, do you think we're going to be announcing any more big layoffs soon?
I think we're going to be seeing more and more of these layoffs come into the news. I don't think we're done with this. I mean, just looking at, I think it was February alone, we saw, just pulling this up real quick. Yeah, just February alone, Convoy and Coyote laid folks off. In January, Flexport, UberFreight, they announced big layoffs. So I think we're going to keep seeing these more of these come around.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, you got me curious in Slack earlier today. You were saying that you're working on a story about Lunchables and pet food. I want to know what those two have in common.
So they are separate stories, although I'd be impressed if I could combine both of them. The Lunchables story, I'm just looking into, they announced some big news, which I will reveal in the story tomorrow. So they announced some big news to basically grow their footprint even bigger than it is right now. And just looking into Lunchables, I ate them a lot growing up. They were my favorite thing to bring to lunch, especially in elementary school. So I was very. I feel like I've been looking for a reason to write about Lunchables, and it's a really interesting logistics story because it's like the perfect product. Essentially, it's really shelf stable. You don't have to freeze it. You can have it in the grocery store or in a reefer truck or in your own personal fridge for weeks and weeks on end, and of course throw in your backpack when the kid's going to school. So it's a perfect shelf stable meal, because typically you don't see a lot of meals that you don't need to heat or even keep refrigerated for a long period of time that will stay good for months, essentially. So it's an interesting kind of logistics story there. The pet food story.
Hold on, I have a couple more. Hold on, I have some more Lunchable questions, because Lunchables are like Pokemon. They've endured throughout the years. Like,
I know.
Since they came out in the '90s, they're still like, my kids still demand them, and they're essentially like an excuse to eat cheese and crackers and a brownie for lunch.
Yeah. It's that was one thing that a professor I interviewed earlier today mentioned, was this idea that let's say you ate Lunchables as a kid in the 90s. Now you have kids. You are happy to buy those because, you have these memories of buying and using those products or eating that food. Whereas, something like dishwasher fluid or even alcohol, I don't know why I picked those two things of all the things, but those are things that only adults buy for adults. Whereas, like, if you bought something as a kid and then you grow up and you have kids, it's just like basically a lifelong purchase. Like they get you in elementary school and you're just a lifelong Lunchables buyer, basically.
It sounds like you might have a problem. I mean, you're writing an article that's a tribute to the Lunchables, and you're really buttering them up. I gotta say though, did you learn anything about the packaging? Because I think about this when I'm like packing the kids' stuff, and it's super efficient packaging. There's no like box or anything. You just peel it off, and there's just like the little sections for what you need. It's very well designed.
It is really well designed, and it's very like. Everything has been geared to be as like profitable as possible, essentially, because I read this book a few years ago that I'll be referring in my article tomorrow. They wanted to actually include a napkin in the Lunchables, but they realized it would cost like 1 cent per package to include one little napkin, so they got rid of that. Instead of the crackers, they were thinking initially, okay, let's use bread, but crackers can last longer. It's easier to fit in that little crevice that they have for the crackers. For the record, I was never a crackers Lunchable fan. I always liked the pizza, so I just wanted to make that clear for viewers, in case anyone was wondering.
Okay. I wish I didn't know that about you, but that's fine. Now, speaking of pet food, which Pizza Lunchables most definitely is, what is going on with pet food? That my other kids get my kids get the Lunchables, my other kids, the dogs, get the pet food. So hopefully nothing too bad.
Well, the pet food story is good for animals, I would say, but maybe bad for people's wallets. Basically, people are preferring to buy more and more premium pet food. It's part of this humanization trend in which people are seeing their pets as people, essentially. People want to buy human-grade pet food for their dogs and cats. Some people are even making home-cooked food for their dogs and cats. So basically, even amid this record inflation we're seeing, people want to spend more and more on pet food when you maybe expect them to be cutting back or preferring some of those, bottom shelf kibble options, I suppose.
I gotta say that we've raised our 12-year-old lab. She's only been on good food the entire time and completely cuts down on vet bills. So I say ultimately, you probably win out. Give your dog some good food. Plus, humanize your animals. Sure, dogs are like part of the family.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. It probably does cut down on medical bills in the long term.
We have to have people starving on this episode because we already got Lunchables. Now we got to talk about Girl Scout cookies. So I first got wind of this. My niece is a scout, and they sent the link, and we need X amount of boxes, and I always order a ton of boxes. But 3 of the ones I wanted were sold out already, and I didn't think much of it till yesterday when Market Watch put out a story, and it said there is a Girl Scout cookie shortage. They said that they're out of Raspberry Rallies, chocolate chip cookies. That's what mine is out of, but they say Thin Mints, Tagalongs, Do-si-dos. Oregon resident Camelia K, she told Market Watch the shortages meant that her daughter's Girl Scout troop had no cookies at all to sell at the start of the season, affecting not just Samoas, but everything from Thin Mints to Tagalongs to Do-si-dos.
Yeah, so actually last month, the baker for Girl Scouts announced that they are experiencing inventory shortages. They didn't really specify what's running out or why they have these shortages, or if it's like flour or sugar or chocolate or whatever. I imagine if it's Raspberry Rally in particular they're running out of, I'm sure there's some sort of fruit additive that they're out of, but they didn't really go into the details. But it appears the supply chain crisis is still going on, basically.
Interesting. So I have a few facts here for you about Girl Scout cookies. Did you know that each year 200 million cookies are sold, ranking in $800 million?
That's a lot of money.
That is.
Good
that is it. Well, and here's the thing, too. So this might be a lesson about the consolidation of supply chains. So back in like the 1960s, there were 49 Girl Scout cookie bakeries, but now there's only 2. There's ABC Bakers, Brownsburg, Indiana's ABC Bakers, and Louisville, Kentucky's Little Brownie Bakers. Those are the only 2 that are in charge of 200 million cookies.
Little Brownie Bakers is the one that's having the inventory problems right now.
It is, and people get very heated about this because some of the cookies have different names depending on the baker that you get them from. But there's been a debate. Is there any difference? Well, I looked into this, and Vox says Samoas have more toasted coconut than caramel delights, and Tagalongs have more peanut butter than peanut butter patties. So if you're familiar with those 2, they look exactly like the same cookie, but slight variations between the 2 bakeries.
You'd think it'd be a little bit more streamlined, because I mean there are however many Pepsi and Coca-Cola bottlers nationwide, but it's all the same recipe. I don't think it really matters whether you buy Coke in the Northeast versus in Arizona. So I'm intrigued that it's not a little bit more streamlined.
Well, you know what? They have these same supply chain issues that all of us have faced. Delish says that leftover cookies were a big issue for the Girl Scouts in 2021. The coronavirus left them with over 15 million boxes of unsold cookies, so they had to donate all of them to schools and food banks in the military, which isn't wrong, but obviously is a byproduct of inventory planning. And then this year, obviously, that's the opposite direction. They don't have enough for their sellers. It's hard to get ahead. But the good news is, Rachel, all of the Girl Scout cookies are kosher. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Are they halal?
They are kosher and halal, so they are
okay,
safe.
All right. That's nice. That's good stuff.
Well, with that in mind, yes?
I was going to say, it's interesting that Girl Scouts seems to have the opposite inventory problem that everyone else is having, where last year, I feel like 2 years ago, people didn't have enough, and right now they have too much stuff. What's going on with the logistics planners?
I don't know who the troop merit badge leader is of the Girl Scouts. They are not sure, but let's give our mayor. We got to rank some Girl Scout cookies really quick here. So let's take a look at what the offerings are this year. There's some new ones. So I haven't had the Raspberry Rallies yet. I don't think most people have, so I can't rank them. They're sold out. I haven't had the chocolate chip, so maybe we'll stick to some of the classics here. If you had to give your top 3, what are they, Rachel?
I would say Samoas, Tagalongs. I don't really care about the other ones, honestly.
Just Samoas and Tagalongs. That's all you need.
The Raspberry Rally does sound good, so I'll give it number 3, even though I've never actually consumed it before. I've really the others.
So we can tell which. So on the Northeast, you're right. Like I grew up, they weren't called caramel delights to me. They were called Samoas.
Yeah.
And
where are they called?
Do-si-dos or peanut butter sandwiches. Yeah, they were called peanut butter sandwiches too, where I was.
Interesting. They were called Do-si-dos in Michigan, Samoas and Tagalongs, and everything else. Yeah. Huh. Very
Well, I'll give you
interesting.
mine. I got the peanut butter sandwiches. We'll go with the tag-alongs and then Thin Mints, but you got to stick them in the freezer. Got to stick them in the freezer, Rachel.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm not a big mint person, but they're a classic. They're pretty good. There are some in here that I've never like Toastier. I think Justin
new.
Martin slapped me about Toastiers. I'm like, what on earth are Toastiers?
Yeah, he's weird. I'll have a talking to him later about that
Yeah,
issue.
I'm I know more.
Before I let you go, you did put an article on FreightWaves.com about the rail situation in Ohio and a sensor. And the only reason I bring it up is I was reading today a Guardian analysis of data collected by the EPA and by nonprofit groups that track chemical accidents in the U.S. shows that accidental releases, be they through train derailments, truck crashes, pipeline ruptures, or industrial plant leaks and spills, are happening constantly across the country. By one estimate, these incidents are occurring on average every 2 days. And if you see it on social media, everyone's like, is this new? What is happening? Why is everything on fire every other day around here? At least insofar as the rail, did you find a cause?
Yeah, so the federal investigators are still figuring out what is happening that caused the East Palestine derailment. But one suspected cause are these hot box detectors or wayside rail detectors that essentially track what temperature the wheel bearings what temperature those wheel bearings are at. And if it's above a certain temperature range, they will send a radio broadcast signal to the conductors and engineers on the trains itself, as well as folks who are monitoring the larger rail system. But it appears in the case of the East Palestine train that it just didn't heat up. Basically, when it was passing previous wayside detectors, the bearing was not hot enough to send an alert. And by the time it was hot enough and it did send that alert, it was already too late, and the wheel appeared to be on fire, actually.
I heard culturally those aren't always taken the most seriously either. Those sensors, I guess sometimes they are too sensitive, and then what happens is whole never cry wolf thing. There's going to be a lot of investigation that goes on. Look up Rachel Premack on FreightWaves.com. Look her up on Modes. Follow her on Twitter, RRPRE, I believe it is. And Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Take care. All right, everybody. Meanwhile, talking about trains, this train's not getting derailed. This train doesn't have hot box sensors going off. This cat's got the hot fuzz sensors going on. Skumia Enjoyer says, this is the first class train. The commoner train has one car, and there's a guy with white gloves squishing them all in. So I guess so. Nice looking ride there. Do you guys remember the show Silver Spoons with Ricky Schroeder? He always had like the train in his house. I don't know if any of you are old enough, crusty enough to remember that. I sure am. Wish I had one of those. Anyways, let's talk to an economist. Let's get smarter over here. Let's talk to UberFreight. Great guest. He used to be over in my neck of the woods. He was at MIT for a few years, if I'm not mistaken. Mazen, thank you for joining me on the show.
Hey, thank you. And great to be here again.
Where was it? I forget if I asked you this last time. Where was your favorite spot in Boston, Cambridge area when you were out at MIT?
I love Alston. It had a lot of good restaurants. So food, yeah.
You ever get any furniture on Alston Christmas? Familiar with that?
Not really. I lived in a furnished studio for a while, so
yeah. Well, no. In Alston, there's this annual event called Alston Christmas, and you know how Boston is on move-in day, right? September 1st, August 31st. It is just insane. If any of you are moving to Boston, 2 rules: do not take Starrow Drive, and number 2. Book well in advance, and your moving truck may still ditch you on those days. But everyone puts their furniture out on like the side of the road, and people can walk around. They take it and they furnish their own apartments, and it's called Alston Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, Mazen, you learned a lot. You learned a lot about looking at data when you were over at MIT, and you recently just put out your Q1 market update. But before we get into it, what was the methodology for putting this together?
Yeah, so we're looking at a broad range of indicators. We're looking at external data, which is like publicly available. This is data from external institutions or the government or like any data that's available out there. in addition to our internal data, where we manage about like $17 billion of freight under management with all of our UberFreight arms. Like if you look at the digital brokerage, demand managed transportation, and so on. So we have a lot of data corresponding to like all the modes. So we look at all of this data and try to write this market update, which goes through all the modes that we see out there, like trucking, rail, intermodal, less than truckload. So we'll look at the range set of indicators to write this report.
Interesting. So, and your report did not surprise me. I'm very familiar with the data in our own system, Sonar, but it speaks to a lot of the things that we have been seeing and puts additional context. So, for example, one of them is about truckload supply outpacing demand. And in our outbound tender reject index, which tracks contracted loads that are just rejected, only 3.5% of loads are getting rejected. So that speaks very well to that. What are you seeing in that category?
Yeah, so we're seeing exactly the same trend. So if you look at the truckload market, let's look at the truckload pie. So it's like a pie representing how much freight is out there. One slice of that pie is like a small slice is the spot freight, and the rest is contract freight. So what we were seeing last year, like early last year, was that this spot slice was getting smaller and smaller, but the size of the pie itself was holding. So it means that there was a lot of freight out there, but it was moving from spot to contract. As the year evolved, that started reversing. So we were seeing that even though the slice of the spot slice was still getting smaller, the size of the pie itself was also getting smaller. So it means there was less freight to move out there. So the first thing we saw that the volume on spot decreased from 20% to 10%. So that's our auction spot volume. So that's the size of that spot slice. And then we saw the size of the whole pie shrinking by like a few percentage points. So how do we determine that size of the pie? We look at various economic indicators. We look at manufacturing output or consumer spending on goods, imports, exports, so all of that. And if you take a combination of all of that, which we define as our demand index, it's a weighted index of all of these four categories that I just mentioned, we saw that decreasing by a few percentage points. And that happened for various reasons. So it started with an inventory glut in like around mid last year, and then a huge decrease in imports. And then in Q4, we started seeing a decrease in consumer spending and a decrease in manufacturing as well. So that's on the demand side.
Yeah.
On the supply side, where we also publish our supply index. So it's a function of how much drivers are out there and how many trucks are out there. So if you look at this supply index, we saw it increasing, recovering like at a very fast pace because we saw all of these owner operators flooding the market and then getting hired by fleets as the spot market tanked. So as that was happening, carriers were also like they were starved for trucks and trailers in the past 2 years. But right now it's getting much easier for them to get these trucks and trailers. So we saw supply recovering to and outpacing demand. So it was growing at a faster rate than demand. Actually, demand was shrinking. So the gap between supply and demand was getting bigger and bigger.
And that means empty trucks. Like, for example, one of the reasons here, take a look at this chart. This is out of Sonar. This is our volume chart. This is our outbound tender volume. And if you take a look at here, what you're seeing is that this has dropped 32% year over year from the previous year. Now, I realize the last 2 years were anomalous because they're crazy, but when has this freight market been normal? And it doesn't, like, seasonality is out the window. That's just not enough volume for all that expanded capacity. What are you seeing in volume?
Yeah, so if you look at tender volumes, this chart makes sense to me because what it is saying that there was a lot of tenders because there were a lot of rejections. So every load that gets rejected gets tendered again and again. So for example, if you look at our data at UberFreight, we published this first tender acceptance, which is the tender it's similar. It's like tender acceptance rate by the first carrier. And it increased from about like 55% to 85%, like roughly. So we're seeing the same trend. Like we're seeing that carriers are rejecting less loads. So because of that, there's less need to tender again and again.
What is going on with employment? So we mentioned an expansion, and without more volume, you need a culling of the herd one way or another. You simply need less trucks. I mean, operating numbers are bad. Like I think the average spot rate earnings is like 248, fuel included. It's not good, and it's been that way for a while. Are you seeing more capacity leave the market? What's going on? Are people just dug in like ticks?
Yeah, so it depends what type of capacity you're looking for. So if you're looking at owner operators, we track data from the FMCSA about like how many new carriers are coming into the market and how many carriers are exiting the market. So if you look at all of that, then you see that more fleets are exiting the market than the ones entering the market, which makes sense because these fleets are unfortunately squeezed between like the high operational costs and the low spot rates. But most of these are either owner operators or small fleets. But if you look at data from the BLS, which is like the government published data about like tracking employment, or specifically tracking employment in the long distance sector, which is like has the highest correlation with spot rates over time, you notice that employment has been growing. So what this tells us is that a lot of these carriers who have been exiting the market, or owner operators who are exiting the market, are not really exiting the market, they're just enrolling with fleets. And for these fleets, from their perspective, it's getting easier and easier to hire. And they have not been able to hire for 2 years. So now they're overhiring. They're like getting all of these employees and holding tight to them. So
we saw the reverse of that market dynamic too, as you kind of alluded to. For a while, we saw this massive, most ever in history, influx or migration of company drivers to owner operators in those past 2 years. But I think they're realizing it might be a little tougher without the parent company riding above you.
Yeah, exactly. So these were entrepreneurs chasing high spot rates. So when they saw that they can get a better opportunity in the spot market working for themselves, they left carriers and they went chasing this opportunity. But now it's the opposite. So spot rates are decreasing, and we're seeing more and more of these getting back to carriers.
Are you pessimistic about the outlook for the rest of the year? Some people like Craig Fuller, Von Moore was just on the other day. He said it's going to be a tale of two halves. Do you see the second half of the year conditions improving, or are things just going to get worse?
Yeah, so there are a lot of indicators that show us that we are somewhere close to the bottom. So we live in a cyclical market, and we don't expect it to be like either good forever or bad forever. So it is a very cyclical market. When we look at all of these indicators, demand is doing well. Like it has dropped by like a few percentage points if you look at overall freight demand, but it's not like anywhere near like a severe or deep recession. But we don't expect it to grow like back to the 2021 levels where everyone was sitting at home with a lot of government money just buying stuff. So we don't expect it to go back to that level. But at the same time, we are not expecting like a severe crash unless there's like a severe recession. On the supply side, we think that we might be seeing a supply correction underway. So that's because, as I said, like some carriers are exiting the market, and even fleets are getting close to their capacity to hire. So fleets at some point are going to ask themselves, like, how much do we need to hire more or to buy more trucks? And the question is not much. So there's going to be a supply correction that should bring the market back to equilibrium.
Interesting. All right, before I let you go, you got a favorite Girl Scout cookie?
No, but you got me excited about that raspberry rally. It looks really good.
I'll give him raspberry. I wish I had one. I would have one for me if you can find one. There's been a shortage. Yeah. Well, everyone out there, you want to learn more about this report, go to UberFreight.com and read their latest market update. It's on their blog. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take it easy. All right, good stuff. Got to tip the band again. Send us the hard stuff. That's what Donovan Logistics says. When you run into the really challenging logistics nightmare that keeps you up at night, call the good folks over at Donovan. They make headaches disappear. How do they do that? Visit them at doonevent.com to find out. Appreciate that one. All right, everybody, it's time to rate a little strap work. Let's see what we got cooking today. Oh.
Dude, I'm with this guy. I have no idea what's going on.
I think I have an idea. He's trying to get his big screen home.
Okay.
That's a 75-incher. He's strapping to his back, and he plans to take it home on his unicycle. Which, by the way, I have read that a unicycle requires more energy to operate than just walking. So it's one of the...
There's actually no way.
Most inefficient modes of transportation. This guy says there's no way. He's a doubter. I hate haters. I wish a hater wasn't filming this video that was looking down. This guy clearly has it. You don't bring a unicycle to Target.
Oh my gosh. He's balancing the TV on his... No.
Well, you all out here rated the strapper. Drew Pearson says, I'm looking for your lightest 75-inch. Jeff Dixon says, I know firsthand how hard it is to ride a unicycle, and I was great at it. Hold on a second. He's going to shout out to him.
There is no way he's doing this right now. Oh, I have to say something. Dude, that's epic. Oh my gosh.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Gotta do what you got. This is logistics. This is the purest form of logistics. Jeff Dixon said, I know firsthand how hard it is to ride a unicycle, and I was great at it, so I give this gentleman a round of applause. I give him a 20 out of 20. I actually asked Jeff about this, like, where when you were riding a unicycle? He said it was in the 70s. I guess in the 70s, there was like a huge unicycle craze, and people were playing unicycle basketball, and he was a unicycle basketball player. PJ Benoit, or a Harlem Globetrotter. PJ Benoit says, since I can barely chew gum and walk at the same time, I give him 5 stars. Tony Darnell, I don't know about the strap work, but those big red balls seem small now. Yeah, a guy on a unicycle will make any balls seem small. Walter Wilson says, a true gamer. Yeah, dude, got to bring that home for COD. Boris Panov, my buddy, says, I wonder about the transit time. I'm telling you, Boris, it's the least efficient mode of transportation compared to walking. You should be, unless you're on a hill. What if you're on a hill, smart guy? You go faster then. Riziki Otomo said this is a true definition of logistics. Cheap, up to the point of free of charge, fast, and dependable. Brandon Smith said he's done with the internet today. Well, wait until after the show, Brandon. John Billis says he's offering hotshot delivery services at affordable rates. Can't imagine his FSC being too high. Excellent way to reduce diesel and equipment costs. Christopher Garan says at that point, you have to wonder why he doesn't just walk. And then the guy actually says, you've got to do what you got to do. Dude, you don't need to ride a unicycle. And Dave Abel says, one of the best ever. All right, man, let's bring up SuperTrucker. He's, his dome's been cooking. He's had some steam.
Oh, nice.
Over, dude. I didn't get. I'll let that play. I said I would do it up until we had one. Now we got one. How you been, buddy?
Now we got one. Good. Yeah, when I saw that video, the first thing that stuck out to me was that tire. That tire was just way over capacity.
It was. So, have you bought a TV recently? Like gone to the store and bought it?
Yeah.
It's always a shock if you come back to like the Civic. Yeah. And anything over 55 inches, like, will not fit in most vehicles unless you've got a big ass car.
Oh yeah, no, we sprung for the delivery. There was no way that thing was going to fit in my Subaru.
Oh yeah, and then with the box on, like I got a 65 incher, and the box adds like another 10 inches in width to both sides too. So you don't want to go there.
And they're not that heavy these days either. The TV itself is maybe 50 pounds, but it's just the size of it that makes it so hard to handle.
Yeah, it's not like even like the plasmas. They used to have like the flat screen plasmas, and those would be like 75 to 125 pounds. But nowadays, it's just unwieldy. That's the issue. But you learn about this stuff from experience. Now, an issue with experience in trucking, though, got you a little heated on TikTok. Let's replay this clip that I played on the other show. We'll ask Justin why he feels this way.
So boom, y'all, I'm a trainer. And this is my trainee, Siobhan. Look at how adorable she is. Now, I know what you're thinking. How did I become a trainer, right?
Honestly, yeah, kind of. You've had a CDL since August last year, so I did some digging. Now, she's not public with her carrier, so I won't name it here, but some very easy Googling. I come to find out that they allow drivers with up to 3 months experience with them to become driver trainers. I cannot overemphasize what a terrible, terrible, terrible idea this is. Other carriers have similar programs where, if you have 90 days with them, they'll let you become a trainer, but only if you have at least a year prior driving experience. It's not the case with this carrier. Now, this app is full of drivers from all over the spectrum, some brand new, some with, 30, 40 plus years under their belts. All the veterans will tell you they don't know everything. In fact, the longer you've been at this, the more you know that you don't know. So why, and I don't blame this driver whatsoever. By all means, do what you want. I blame the carrier in this case. There's absolutely no reason why you should be allowing anyone with less than 2 years experience trying to teach other people how to do the job too. They barely know what they're doing as well. All
right, let's talk to Justin about this. So Justin, what is, I mean, I think it sounds kind of obvious, but what's the issue with putting a 3 month, and I understand, as I understand this correctly, if you have started as a truck driver, you have to have a CDL, but all you need is 3 months experience with this company, no other prior experience, just 3 months with them, and then you're good to be a trainer. What's the issue?
Yeah, it's wild. 3 months isn't even a season. It's one season. Yeah. So if you started in the spring, now it's in the summer, you have no idea what driving in the winter is like driving a commercial vehicle. You've never had to put chains on. You've never had to drive through a steep grade in the snow. I mean, at 3 months, you barely even know how to back.
How long? So when you were trained, for example, how much experience did your trainer have? You want like an old gray beard sitting across from you? Is that the thing here?
Yeah. All the trainers I had, they had 20 plus years, decades of experience. At the time, at my company and pretty much all companies, they wanted 2 years minimum accident free, which is completely gone out the window now. It's like, as long as you're breathing, you can be a trainer. They don't care how many accidents you've been in. As long as you're still employed there, you're good to go.
So what do you think it would be the biggest blind spot for a new trainer, a 3-month trainer? Because I'm sure the person in that job, they don't think they're doing anything wrong, but what kind of blind spot? Maybe we can educate them. What kind of blind spots might they have?
The muscle memory. You don't realize just how big the truck is. We see photo after photo and all these videos every time of a truck going around a corner too sharply. And when they asked the driver, what did you do? They said, oh, I just forgot that I had a trailer behind me. It's things like bad habits that you pick up from driving a car your entire life. Those have to get wiped completely out of your system when you get into a truck. And a lot of drivers, this happens to them where once they've been driving for a while and they get into a car, they get picked. I get picked on all the time because of how wide I drive. I take turns really wide in my car. And it's because I had to carry those habits from driving a truck back to driving a car again.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I can agree with you. I can totally see the issue there. It's very hard to learn anything in 3 months, let alone how to be a driver yourself, let alone how to train someone else how to be a driver. Exactly. And also there's kind of that issue with credibility. You need the person who's learning to also take you seriously so they're receptive to what you're teaching them. And if you're like, I don't know, I got to check a manager, or even worse, you don't know and you just lie, you give them the wrong way that you're doing it. This can go sideways pretty quickly. You know what went sideways? Oakland. Take a look at this sideshow. I don't know if you go to any of the sideshows in Philly? You check those out?
No, I've come across one. I used to drive behind the airport to UPS air terminal for work, and you would see dirt bikes all the time doing stuff like this, but never at semi. This is just beyond stupid. I don't know if this guy owns the truck. It looks like the company logo there has a spray paint over it, so he's trying not to, he's trying to hide who he is. So either he owns this truck and he's a moron, or it's someone else's truck.
Wait, hold on a second. You think he outdated a can at Port of LA or at Port of Oakland and he's doing the sideshow? Or is this stolen? I was assuming this was stolen.
Who knows? If it was stolen, I don't know, because you can't tell from the video whether or not there's a seal on the back of that trailer. Yeah. But watch when the truck comes around this spot here, you can see right there. There's a black spot on the the logo on the side of the truck.
This could have been much worse. I was usually when I see these videos, a ton of people in the crowd end up getting hit by whatever vehicle is doing the spinning somehow. And it's crazy too. How blind is the spot that a lot of these people are in? As you see this guy turn, by the end of this video, they're crowding the back of that trailer.
Yeah. So he's making a left turn, which thankfully it's on the driver's side, so he can see what he's turning into. But people on the back of the truck, he's got no idea they're back there.
No idea.
Fortunately, it's a container, so it's not like there's a lot of hangover on the back, so it's not swinging out and striking people. Yeah, if this was a 53-foot trailer, this could have been a disaster.
What did they tell you?
The guy in the back of the trailer is just an idiot.
This is obviously voluntary by who's ever driving the truck, but what did they train you on? If you got encircled by a crowd or something, you still carry some sensitive freight.
Well, just about any truck driver that's been driving since past the Rodney King riots, they have that mental image of
Reginald Denny,
Reginald Denny being pulled out of the semi, and all the guys I used to work at the post office with said the same thing. That's not going to be me. That's not going to be me.
Wow. But that's the only train they give you is that's not going to, they just have some old guy say that to you?
See, when you're in a situation like that, it's well, God help you.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe that 3-month-old would have a better suggestion than just dude, that's not happening to me. All right.
That might be a 3-month-old in the cab.
Well, how about this? Have you ever delivered to the wrong address? Take a look at this guy. He misread California and been Canada or whatever the hell happened to him. Have you been to the? I've always would when I was on DOs and doing delivery docs, that would always be one of my fears. I would not think properly and put down AK for the wrong state.
Nothing wildly out of place. Most of the time it's you call a facility ahead of time and you say, hey, I'm a driver for XYZ. I got a load coming to you. This is the address. How do I get there? And sometimes they'll give you the address of like the employee parking lot. So that's a good way of getting lost. But I always, after that happens to you for the first couple of times, you make sure to like confirm, like, I'm going to the loading dock or unloading dock. Where's shipping, receiving? Please don't send me the directions on how you get to work.
Absolutely. Well, so a Redditor on here said, in trucking, I've never had it where I went to the wrong state, wrong location, sure, but that was because the receiver moved buildings and didn't change the paperwork. I bet that happens quite
Not
frequently.
all the time.
I know that's happened to me before. I put out DOs and you have templates sometimes too, and you go, okay, someone goes, it's going to like Marion, Georgia. And you just don't know that they moved facilities, so you're giving them the old location. But then when you get there, it causes a big hassle as you yell at the guard and you tell them to look at the paper, right?
No, yeah, I always call ahead of time. If it's someplace I've never been to before, I always call ahead of time.
Interesting. Now, so you have kids, but you this job came around about a year ago and your kid was just getting to that like that awareness like age. So you haven't driven while having a son, but check out this semi sleepover right here.
We had a sleepover in our dad's semi-truck.
Hi guys!
I love this. Yeah, one of my big regrets is that I'm driving a desk now, so my son will never know, how cool it was being in a truck like this. I gotta find a friend still on the road and show him the in and outs of a truck.
You still cover you can just do a podcast from someone else's truck. Be like, hey, can we borrow your truck and do a sleepover with the kids?
Yeah, next time I'm in Philly, I'll stalk the port down there and find some guy that is looking for a time to kill.
Although, about a minute into that, you might start regretting it. Those, I don't know if you saw that video with the parrots that I had a couple days ago, and parrot may seem like a good idea at first, but after a while, it really gets on your nerves. Those kids were chirping quite a bit.
Yeah, well, at least he's parked. It's different having a sleepover than trying to drive 500 miles with them in the back of the cab.
Interesting. Well, speaking in the cab, so let's say you don't have their kids on there. What are some of the suggestions that you have for someone to pass time in the back of the cab? This came up on Reddit, and some Redditors had some great suggestions here. And it's a topic we, I don't know, idle time. It's the devil's work. We haven't talked enough about this one.
Yeah, well, when I was on the road, iPads were just becoming a thing. I had a really good gaming laptop. Nowadays, you got the Steam Deck. Some guys are really into drones. I had a really nice DSLR camera with me, so if I was in like a cool area, I would try to get some good photos. But yeah, you got to find a hobby that one can fit your budget and can fit inside the cab. You don't want to have a potting wheel in the back of the truck.
No, of course. I mean, a lot of people here, they on Reddit at least, they said cooking, adventures with the dog, adult coloring books, reading, fishing. Yeah. Another guy said coloring books. I love that. Another one said sleeping. Another one said when I'm over the road watching movies, video games, browsing Reddit or the internet, reading philosophy, thinking about it, I should develop my hobbies. I guess he feels like he does these things, but he's not actually developing any skills. I feel that sometimes at night too. Like I indulge in the things that I like, and I feel like I'm learning something, but I don't really remember anything afterwards.
I had this thought that truck drivers are some of the most least credentialed but highly educated people on the roads, just because of all the podcasts and everything that they listen to.
Well,
they just don't get a degree in any of it.
A lot of them were talking about here. They were saying that a lot of the answers were think. I'm a road philosopher. Another guy here says, I believe that drivers, there's no better time to answer life's bigger questions than behind the wheel. So I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah. Come up with conspiracy theories and yell. Another person knit. You don't see a lot of trucking knitters, or at least the stereotype. Doesn't have that. A lot of video games, so the guy's learning bass guitar. We found our first crossover Back the Truck Up flying magazine reader. This guy said flying. He got himself a Cessna a couple years ago. Just toss that in the trailer, roll it out during your downtime, and
I want to know who he drives for. One to make the money to afford one, and to have the downtime to get the hours behind the stick.
I think so. Do you have a strategy for that, though? At least that topic of the guy who's like, you know what? I do the things I like every night, but they don't get me anywhere. How do you focus your hobbies, or how do you focus your time?
You really got to find something that sticks out with you. People who are high in openness like me, the problem we have is we're into so many things that it's impossible to find something and stick with it. You bounce from hobby to hobby after a while. And I'm like terrible with this. We watched this TV show Bluey with my kid, and I'm obsessed with the theme song. Okay. So I actually went online and I bought a melodica, which is like the flute keyboard that they use to play the song. Yeah. And my wife was like yelling at me. She's like, "You're going to buy it. It's going to sit here for like a week, and then it's going to go up on the shelf and you'll forget about it." And she's right. Truth.
Yeah, I have one of those things from like Zelda. The what do you call it? I'm such a bad
ocarina.
Like, ocarina. I have an ocarina. I never play the damn thing. You know what though? Maybe if this train heard my ocarina, it wouldn't hit this truck. Let's take another train and truck strike. I want to say there's been a lot of these, but there probably hasn't been any more than normal. I'm in Tennessee and we hear about these things all the time.
That's a bad one.
That's Georgia State. Well, this one's GSP.
I think what we're seeing is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, Georgia State Patrol says the tractor, they just got stuck on the railroad tracking on the railroad track there by that CSX train. The train engineer was transported to Hamilton Medical Center. Fortunately, only minor injuries. There's a business owner right by there that said once in a while there's a dip and drivers just get stuck in that dip.
Yeah, it's a low boy trailer right there, and you can see that there's a little bit of a hump on the track. Usually they've got signs indicating like, hey, watch out, don't take a low boy across this. But when he's hauling the excavator like that, those things are heavy, so it probably just wasn't the right equipment for that kind of intersection.
Well, what do you think about this guy's awful beard and his conspiracy theory? Play this tape.
Today is the 23rd of February, and we have another train hitting another semi-truck that was parked on the track. I literally just put out another video of a semi-truck parked on a train track. This is for educational purposes only. I'm not trying to speculate on anything that's going on, but very, very odd coincidences are happening right now. So follow for more.
These aren't coincidences. These are drivers not knowing about a ditch that was in the middle of the road. I mean, all of the situation that happened there that's what annoys me about, because there's real conspiracies, but some people they make so much noise and they do a disservice to the conspiracy industry by pointing out stupid things like common train accidents, which is driver negligence usually.
This is the lowest hanging fruit. It's just people showing their sheer ignorance of like the supply chain and just statistics in general. Over 1,000 train derailments a year in the country. That's, more than 2 per day.
These aren't even sketchy hits. If you're going to run into something, why a concrete barrier that's easy going to break? Or why a trailer that's full of wood? There's way worse things you could have a train drive into than these particular commodities. These are just pains in the asses. And thankfully, nobody got too hurt in these incidents.
You could go down to Memphis and derail some trains there and lock up the entire, East Coast supply chain for a month, because that's where like the main hubs are at. These things happen all over the country, but it isn't until people start paying attention to them that it really gets into the zeitgeist.
Let's skip the exit mirage for now. Let's jump to Big Brother was a trucker. I got this video from Amazon about this truck driver detailing the tech within her truck. Let's hear it.
You're tracked, right? That little guy is how we are tracked. It's probably recording me recording it, but it can't hear me, so that's nice. So it has one camera facing me, one camera facing forward, and then one camera on each side. The one camera in front tracks how close we are to other drivers, and if we stop at stop signs. So if we don't stop at a stop sign, like fully stop, then we get a violation for that. It tracks our speed, so we cannot go more than 6 miles per hour over the speed limit, or we get a speeding violation. These vans also track our buckle count, so it'll count how many times we buckle our seatbelt, and if we don't buckle it enough, then or we miss a buckle, then that is a seatbelt violation. But also that camera is watching me while I drive, so I cannot do a lot. If I want to sip up my coffee, I have to pull over so that I can grab it and drink it, because if I do it while I'm driving, then that's a driver distraction.
You can't drink anymore? You can't drink anything?
I can't touch the center console, or else that is a driver distracted
Everything's
violation.
on the center console.
One guy was itching his face, his beard, one time.
You can't itch your beard?
The camera picked
I do this involuntarily all the time.
And so he got a driver distracted violation for itching his face, but they disputed it. And I cannot unbuckle my seatbelt until I am in park. I also cannot get out of my seat until I'm in park, which is obvious. So yeah, everyone who works for Amazon pretty much hate those little things, but we have to remember it's just for safety. But I thought I would give y'all a little rundown of it because I feel like it's asked a lot, but there you go.
Are they asking a lot, Justin?
Yeah, and to her credit, she says, if you go into her TikTok account, she gives a little more context. The video is going viral. Business Insider did an interview with her, and they didn't give her enough time to respond, so she feels like a lot of her comments are being taken out of context. She was very emphatic that this was all about safety, and I feel like a lot of the older people in the workforce are kind of a little more hip to like what's going on here. It's a lot of Big Brother stuff in the cab. Nobody wants to be under that kind of surveillance.
So I mean, look,
the whole entire workday.
Some is fine. The stop sign is fine. You gotta abide by the rule. Looking outside the cab, any of that kind of stuff is totally fine. Maybe even like one camera. The problem is like the camera's tracking so much like inconsequential. Like why can't you drink? Like distractions. I know this is just normal. Adjusting your seat. Those are just normal involuntary things that you do. You talk about distracted driving. Trying to appease this thing is a distraction in and of itself. Hey Justin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Find SuperTrucker on Twitter. Go look up Back the Truck podcast wherever you get it. While you're there, subscribe to What the Truck as well. Find me on Twitter at Timothy Dooner. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. Don't be a stranger and take care.
From the truckload quoting page within TieTMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical